Hey everyone, Teo here. This is my artist review of the Xiaomi Pad 7 Pro. The review that has been requested so many times by you guys. First of all, a disclaimer. This is not a sponsored unit. I have actually purchased this tablet for review purposes, and I also purchased the pen. And this review is going to be quite long, so if you want to save time, you can check out the text review that I have already written. The link is in the video description below. Or you can use the timestamps provided to jump to different sections of this video. Before I start, I have a favor to ask from you guys. Consider supporting my YouTube channel by supporting me on Patreon. Or if you are interested to buy this tablet, after watching this review, consider using the affiliate links that I have for you in the video description below. Let's take a quick look at the pricing, and all these are in Singapore dollars. So I paid 729 Singapore dollars for this tablet, which is around 540 US dollars. And this pen is 89 Singapore dollars, so that's around 66 US dollars. Alright, as usual, let me give you the bottom line up front. And I had purchased this over the Xiaomi Pad 7 Non-Pro because this comes with the matte glass option. Now my recommendation is this. If you do not need or want the matte glass, just go with the Xiaomi Pad 7 Non-Pro because I doubt you will notice any performance differences unless you are running benchmarks. So this particular tablet comes with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8S Gen 3 processor, 12 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of internal storage. Overall performance is fast and lag-free. Apps can launch really quickly and you can retain many apps in memory, and the 144 Hz refresh rate is really smooth. The display is sharp, vibrant and bright, up to 800 nits. The power button has a fingerprint scanner that works fast and effectively. The camera bump is huge. Audio quality is amazing with good clarity and surround. There's also face unlock with the landscape camera, but this is not the secure type that can unlock banking apps. Battery life is about 10 to 14 hours with normal usage. There are always people in the comment section saying that OLED is superior compared to LCD, but the thing is, a good LCD can still look great. And this is a great looking LCD. And the anti-glare is very effective, and just so you can compare, this is how reflections look. And this 11.2-inch LCD display makes reading comics really satisfying. This tablet is running on Xiaomi HyperOS version 2 on top of Android 15. And this is the global ROM version, not the China ROM. So this has official support for Google Play Store. And as a bonus, I don't see any bloatware. So this is a beautiful, well-made tablet with great performance and excellent build quality and finishing. Downsides, the tablet is 500 grams, which is actually alright for an 11.2-inch tablet, but I can still feel the weight, especially when I'm holding the tablet with one hand for long periods of time, which is why in this video you will see me hold the tablet like this quite often. So when drawing, I would prefer to have the tablet on the table, on a stand. I would prefer not to hold the tablet like this with one hand for long periods of time while drawing or writing, even though the 11-inch tablet is quite easy to handle. It's not too unwieldy to handle. And just for comparison purposes, this is 500 grams versus the M4 iPad Pro from 2024, which is 444 grams. So the weight difference of 56 grams between these two tablets is quite substantial, at least to me, as someone who likes to use my tablets outdoors for sketching. So I do use my iPad Pro to sketch on the train while commuting to work, and most of the time I'm standing, so I'm actually holding the tablet this way while drawing. And this is actually more manageable in terms of weight compared to the Xiaomi tablet. The matte glass surface is good for reading, but for drawing I find that the texture is a bit too smooth for my personal preference. I find it smoother compared to the matte glass on pen displays, and this is certainly much smoother compared to matte textured screen protectors. So it's kind of difficult to control the pen when the pen tip glides on the surface so smoothly. So I would say this tablet is good for quick sketches like this, but if you need precision, if you need to draw a bit slower, it can be a bit more challenging on this matte surface. There is some wobble or jitter when drawing slow diagonal lines. So even with a straight edge, you can see the line is not perfectly straight. If you're drawing organic shapes or if you draw fast, then this may not be an issue. But if you are someone who likes to draw slow and if you have to draw straight lines, then this may affect accuracy. The Xiaomi Focus Pen is a separate purchase, and this pen has fantastic pressure sensitivity, but tilt performance is inconsistent. Tilt does not work well with Concepts and Infinite Painter. For example, with Infinite Painter, when I tilt the pen, tilt barely works. And when I was writing the letters earlier, tilt would activate randomly. I will talk more about the drawing experience later. Having said that, tilt does work well with Sketchbook and Clip Studio Paint. There are 1, 2, 3 side buttons, but they are not customizable with drawing apps. Other downsides, there is no microSD card slot, there is no cellular model. The workstation mode or the desktop mode is not that useful. And lastly, I feel like the USB-C port is too low. So when you connect a cable like this, and when you have the tablet without the case on the table, it's actually the cable that's in contact with the table, not the bottom of the tablet. So if you put the tablet down often enough, I am pretty sure the cable will start to bend upwards. And everything that I have said so far also applies to the Xiaomi Pad 7 non-Pro. So what are the differences between the Pro versus the non-Pro? Well, the Pro has the matte glass option, which is an optional purchase. Here in Singapore, you just need to pay an extra 30 Singapore dollars to get this matte glass, which I feel it's really worth the money and the main reason for buying the Pro model. The Pro has better processor, faster charging speed of 67 watts versus 45 watts, Wi-Fi 7 versus Wi-Fi 6E, high resolution cameras in front and behind. So is this tablet worth the money? If you're buying this for general purpose use and not for drawing, I would say yes, it's worth the money because it's a great tablet. If you're buying this for drawing, just note the limitations with tilt sensitivity. Also note that the pen is not that easy to control on this very smooth matte glass surface. It's okay for writing, but for drawing, I would prefer the surface to have more texture. And those are the pros and cons for this tablet. And now let's move on to the full review. Let's look at the items included with the purchase. This is how the packaging looks. Unfortunately for me, there is no case or keyboard case included, and the Xiaomi Focus Pen is a separate purchase. If you want to buy this tablet, make sure you buy the model with global room with official support for Google Play Store. In the box, you will find a tablet, quick start guide, warranty booklet, USB-A to USB-C charging cable, a 67-watt charger with USB-A port, and the plug may vary depending on country and region. In the box for the pen, there is the user guide, warranty booklet, the pen, and one replacement pen tip. Replacement pen tips for the Xiaomi Focus Pen can be found easily on AliExpress. I'm not sure whether there are other pens that can be used with this tablet because the pen has to be paired to the tablet with Bluetooth before the pen can be used with the tablet. And by attaching it to the side of the tablet magnetically, this will pair the pen wirelessly and will also charge the pen battery. And now let's take a detailed look at the design of this tablet. And this is a beautiful looking tablet with excellent build quality. The LCD display is an 11.2-inch LCD and the resolution is 3200 by 2136 and the resolution is high. Corners for the LCD and the body are rounded off, and this is a laminated display, so there's no gap between the surface and the LCD beneath. The bezels are quite thin and uniform on all four sides, and you can hold the tablet like this with the thumb on the tablet and still swipe around. This is the top of the tablet with the power button, fingerprint scanner, 2 speakers, another 2 speakers on the other side with good clarity and surround. If you have the tablet on the table like this and you press down while you're drawing or writing, the tablet will move. And when the tablet is on the table like that, this edge will be in contact with the table surface. So if you have the tablet on the table all the time, I'm pretty sure this part is going to be scratched up. The back is metal and this is matte textured, and I can see some fingerprints. There are some pogo pin connectors here, so you can buy a keyboard case with this tablet, but I did not buy that just to, save money. This camera module has a flash, a 50 megapixel f1.8 camera, and a 2 megapixel depth camera. This USB-C port has USB 3.2 Gen 1 transfer speed, so that's around 5 gigabits per second. Xiaomi definitely should have center aligned this port. Volume buttons are at the top, and I see some holes probably for the mic. The thickness of the tablet is 6.2 millimeter. The landscape camera is 32 megapixel f2.2, and this can be used for face unlock, but it's not that secure. And somewhere here there is supposed to be a sensor for auto brightness. The 144 Hz refresh rate is variable, and the animation from the OS, scrolling, pan, zoom and rotate, all that is going to be really smooth. Here I have the Xiaomi tablet on the left and the Apple M4 iPad Pro on the right side. So this is an 11.2-inch LCD. This is an 11-inch OLED display. And the aspect ratio, I would say, for this Xiaomi is slightly more narrow. The aspect ratio is actually 3:2, and this is a bit wider. But at a glance, the design looks almost identical. So LCD versus OLED. So in theory, the black for the OLED would be just pure black, but here you can see on the LCD, it looks pretty black. To me, it looks pretty dark, so I don't think I can complain about this. The visual quality looks great. The colors look vibrant. The display is bright, up to 800 nits. The OLED display can go up to 1000 nits or 1600 with HDR. And with a side-by-side comparison, they look almost identical to me. And it seems like there is a bit more contrast with the OLED, so the highlights or the lighter areas are lighter and the darker areas are darker. But in terms of color saturation, these two look pretty similar to me. Another thing that affects how the display looks, of course, is the matte glass surface. So I have a big window by the side, and this is how the matte glass would diffuse the reflection. You can see that the display is still bright enough, so you can still see what's on the display through the diffuse reflection. And this is the glossy display with anti-reflective coating. You can see the difference for yourself, which one is more distracting, which one is better to look at, which is actually personal preference. Now, Apple does sell the iPad Pro with the nano texture option, but it's a very expensive upgrade. And the thing with the glossy display is it attracts fingerprints more easily. There are actually fingerprints up here, smudges up here, and some of them are quite difficult to wipe away. Whereas on the matte textured surface, it does not attract fingerprints as easily. Fingers can glide on it quite easily, and if there are fingerprints, you can wipe them away very easily. The more noticeable advantage of OLED is when you're viewing content in a dark room, for example, the black is completely black, whereas on the LCD display, you can see the IPS glow. Now, this is actually not really a big issue to me because, both displays still look good. Reading experience on a matte textured surface is way better compared to reading on a glossy display, even one with anti-reflective coating. The visuals look vibrant, bright, and sharp. And the viewing angles are great. I don't see much color shift when viewing the tablet from extreme angles, although you can see the drop in brightness due to the matte textured surface. I would say the reading experience with text is pretty good as well. Now, there is some IPS glow, but it's not that obvious. All matte textured surfaces will introduce some grain, color noise, or shimmering effect. And on this tablet, all that is kept to a minimum. The good thing is the visual quality isn't compromised. The visual quality is good, the sharpness is still sharp. But the downside is the matte glass surface is quite smooth. This is smoother compared to the pen displays that I have tested and noticeably smoother compared to matte textured screen protectors. When drawing, I find the pen tip to glide too easily, which is to say that it can be quite difficult to control the pen. For writing it's fine, but for drawing sometimes you want to draw a bit slower, so the extra smoothness may affect your experience. Let's talk about performance. I don't actually run benchmark tests with my reviews. All I care about is whether the tablet can run smooth without lag, even with multiple apps open, with multiple layers when I'm drawing. And I'm happy to say that the Snapdragon 8S Gen 3 in this tablet is really powerful. You can play games at the highest graphics settings at 60 FPS, and the animation is really smooth. 12 gigs of RAM is more than sufficient for multitasking, and you can have many apps open and they will retain in memory. The OS is Xiaomi HyperOS version 2 running on Android 15. I will not go through all the features because there are many, so let me just go through some of the more interesting ones to me. You can change the lock screen style, and there are many beautiful options to choose from. And some of these images are really beautiful. And of course, you can upload your own wallpaper. I am going with this because it looks great. I did not test the backup option, so I cannot tell you whether you can get 100% backup. But from my experience with using Android tablets for the past 10 years, the backup options from various companies usually do not back up 100% of the tablet, of the data, which is to say that you should always back up your own files and data manually, in addition to using the backup options provided. When I first set up this tablet, I had to transfer the data from my Samsung tablet over, and there was a QR code I had to scan. And the file transfer or data transfer is wireless. There is no option for cable, which is not an issue. The main issue is I wasn't able to transfer all the data from my Samsung tablet over to the Xiaomi tablet. More specifically, the artworks that I have saved with Infinite Painter did not get transferred. So that's to say that if you have to transfer your data from another tablet over to the Xiaomi tablet, make sure you check that all your data, all your files, folders have been transferred over. Xiaomi has this workstation mode, which is the desktop mode that lets you use the UI like a computer, Windows desktop. I don't find workstation mode to be that useful for a few reasons. First of all, there aren't many features. You can mirror the tablet screen onto the external display, but there is no way to choose the resolution or the scaling or the aspect ratio. So now you can see there are black bars by the left and right side because this display has 16:10 aspect ratio, but the tablet is 3:2. So there is no way for you to scale or feel the whole external display. And you can scale the windows, but I mean, that's pretty much all you can do with the workstation mode. And workstation mode is not very useful on a small display. An 11-inch display is actually considered big, but for desktop mode, it's considered small. If this is an external touchscreen display, you can use touchscreen. So I don't see how this can improve productivity compared to just using the basic tablet mode, which can pretty much do, well, the same thing that you can do with workstation mode. Yeah, there is split screen, of course. This is a very basic feature. When you connect the tablet to an external display that has speakers, the audio will come from the speakers from the external display. If the display does not have speakers, then there will be no audio, or I have not figured out how to switch the audio back to the tablet when it's connected to an external display. Now, if you know how to do so, let me know in the comment section below. Let's look at the Xiaomi Focus Pen. If I remember correctly, this pen was first released together with the Xiaomi Pad 6s Pro, which I have reviewed last year. The pen is well made, build quality is solid, the surface is matte textured, so this is quite comfortable to hold. This is powered by battery, so it needs to be charged, and pairing is through Bluetooth. The design is almost cylindrical except for this flat side here, which can attach to the side of the tablet for charging and pairing. This pen supports palm rejection, tilt, and 8000 levels of pressure sensitivity. Let me show you quickly what the shortcut buttons can do. So this first button that is closer to the pen tip is for taking notes. You can press and hold away from the tablet or near the tablet, and the screen will blur, and you can tap on the screen and the notepad will pop up and you can write something here. So let me just close this. The button in the center is for taking screenshots. So once you press it, the screen will become dimmer, and now you can just draw an area for taking screenshots. So let's save this, and now it's saved into the gallery. And this button, the isolated button, press and hold, and you can see a red cursor here. So this is for presentation, and I must say that it's actually not that easy to control the movement. Because you have to press and hold the buttons to activate the shortcuts, it's quite unlikely for you to activate the shortcuts accidentally. For example, when I'm drawing, I may accidentally press the side button like this and nothing will happen, because to activate the shortcuts, it requires a press and hold. One big limitation for these buttons is they are not customizable by third-party apps. It's possible to write in text boxes, but the scribble feature may or may not be available depending on which software keyboard you are using. And now let's take a look at the line test, and the app that I'm using is Medibank Paint. Let me just disable the cursor first because it's quite distracting. Now, whether you can disable the cursor or not will depend on the drawing app you use. First thing I want to show you is latency, which will vary depending on which app you use. So here you can clearly see the line is chasing the pen tip because there is latency. And this app is Concepts. So latency is almost not noticeable, which is great. Latency is not really an issue when drawing. And now let's test the initial activation force. So this brush is 70 pixels, which is quite thick. And as I draw the slow diagonal lines, you can see there is wobble and jitter. I can get thin lines very easily. I am barely applying any pressure and I can still get the thin lines, but this wobble and jitter is obviously going to affect accuracy. Let me put a straight edge here to draw a few straight lines. And there is still some wobble and jitter. Next we have the tapered strokes. So this looks good. The lines can taper smooth and sharply. Line transition from thin to thick. This is actually the true pressure sensitivity test, because sometimes it is very difficult to draw thin lines after drawing the thick lines. But here you can do so easily with the pen. The transition from thin to thick is smooth, but you can see this is a diagonal line and there is diagonal line wobble. Let's see if we can maintain consistent line width by maintaining consistent pressure. And yes, I can do so. And again, this is a diagonal line, so there is diagonal line wobble and jitter. Let's draw some dots. Sometimes the dots will not appear for some reason. So I guess you have to tap and drag if that happens. The last test is the cursor misalignment test, where I will draw separate lines and join the lines to see whether I can join the lines properly without gaps and without the lines overshooting. It looks fine. There is this line overshooting here, but that could be due to like human error. But otherwise, I don't really see any gaps or very excessive lines overshooting. This is palm rejection. I'm trying to draw with my finger and I cannot draw with my finger. Let me just delete this. Let me just write some letters. So I'm going to put my palm on it, then raise it, put it back, and then write and see if I will accidentally activate undo. Oops, what happened there? By the way, the handwriting performance or experience with this tablet with the pen is great. Let's test tilt sensitivity. And tilt performance will vary depending on which app you use. So let me just tilt, straight, tilt, straight, straight, tilt, straight, tilt, straight, tilt, straight, tilt. Doesn't work here. Straight, tilt. I find tilt to not work that well with concepts. Now it works fine, but the thing is, sometimes line tests do not show you the real experience. Let me show you this drawing that I've drawn with concepts. So I was drawing with this brush, the watercolor B4 brush. Let me switch to this black brush and disable the colors. Now, this brush actually has tilt. Yeah, has tilt. Here's the thing. When I am drawing, let's say I'm drawing the roof here, I'm holding the pen at my usual angle, but sometimes tilt would activate there. Tilt would activate randomly because when the pen is at this 45-degree angle, which is going to happen quite often, tilt would activate randomly. And this happened to me so many times that it's very irritating. So by right with this app, I should get tilt only when I tilt the pen very low. But the thing here is it would activate tilt even when I'm holding the pen at 45 degrees. So to make sure that I do not activate tilt accidentally, I have to hold the pen more vertically, which is not my usual hand or pen holding position. I was still able to complete this sketch. It's just that I have to undo a lot of time to remove the accidental tilt. This app is Sketchbook, so we have thin lines, heavy pressure, and we have tilt. And tilt actually works quite well with this app because I can get different thickness depending on how I tilt the pencil brush. I can have thin, moderate thickness, and very thick. Back to thin, thinner. So this is good. This is Krita, and I'm using the Pencil 5 tilted brush. Tilt does not work. You can see the cursor, but the cursor is not following the direction of the pen. And also when I draw, you can see that the brush stroke is not following the direction of the pen. This is Clip Studio Paint, and I'm using the pastel brush. So this is with light pressure, with heavy pressure, and this is with tilt. So this is with tilt, and tilt with heavy pressure. This is thin line, heavier lines, and broad strokes with tilt. And back to thin. So tilt works fine with Clip Studio Paint. This app is Infinite Painter. This is with light pressure, with heavy pressure, and this is with tilt. I can actually see the strokes, but it's very faint. It's like less than 5% opacity. Let's try again. And you can see that, okay, now it works. And now it doesn't work. Now it works. And now it does not work. If you like to use tilt brushes and your main drawing apps are Krita or Infinite Painter or Concepts, the inconsistent performance with tilt brushes is going to be a deal breaker. If your main drawing apps are Sketchbook or Clip Studio Paint, then no problem because tilt performs well with CSP and Sketchbook, and Midiband Paint doesn't really support tilt, so you can use this without issues as well. I did not test IBIS Paint X because I'm not familiar with this app. And now let's talk about the drawing experience. So this 11.2-inch display is big, and this is a comfortable size for drawing. This is how big the display is compared to an A5 size sketchbook. So you can see the display is actually noticeably bigger, maybe about 3 centimeters or 2.5 centimeters wider and taller. So this is a very nice size to work with for drawing. It's spacious enough. I can have my toolbar at the top and still have a good amount of space. Let me add the layers palette by the side, and there is still a good amount of space left over for drawing. For drawing, you will most likely need a tablet stand, and this is the Pablo PR100 stand that I have been using for years. This comes with a latch behind where you can adjust the angle very easily. And it would be good if you buy a case for the tablet because remember the camera bump is very big. So if you have the tablet on the stand without the case, the tablet is going to move while you're drawing. This matte textured glass is actually smoother compared to matte textured screen protectors. So the upside is it doesn't affect visual quality as much, but the downside is this can be a bit too smooth. Now for quick sketches like this, where you draw lines very quickly, it's fine. The very smooth textured glass, it's not going to affect your drawing experience. But if you have to, slow down and draw because you may want to have more accuracy, the pen, I feel like it glides a bit too easily, so it's not as easy to control compared to using the pen on a more textured surface. Maybe it will take some time to get used to, but I would prefer the surface to be a bit more textured. As mentioned earlier, the pressure performance is really good. So let me just try and join this line to make this look like a seamless line. And if I press down hard, I can get broad strokes like this. So this allows me to color large areas very easily, very quickly. And if I need the thin lines, by the way, I'm using this 81 pixel brush. If I need the thin lines, I just apply minimal pressure to get the thin lines. I'm barely applying any pressure right now, by the way. Yeah, so this is, I would say, good, really good for sketching. Let's draw some diagonal lines here. By the way, I'm using a textured brush, the Xiaomi brush. So if there is any diagonal line wobble or jitter, it may be disguised by the textured brush stroke. This actually looks alright. Let me switch to a different brush, a brush with a solid edge. Okay. I think it looks fine actually. Okay, now you can see there is some wobble and jitter, but here it's quite straight. It's just that there is some pressure variance because it's kind of difficult for me to control the pressure precisely. If I draw a bit faster, by the way, this is my normal drawing speed, the lines actually look straight enough. The display is laminated, so when drawing, it looks like the line is coming out from directly beneath the pen tip. So while creating this quick sketch, I did not have any issues with palm rejection. This app is Infinite Painter, and as mentioned earlier, tilt sensitivity doesn't work well with this app. So if you have to use brushes that have tilt sensitivity, I highly recommend you disable the tilt from the brush settings. Otherwise, the tilt is going to happen randomly, or it's going to cause you or create some stray strokes. So just take note of that. Disable tilt if you have to draw with this app, or choose brushes that do not have tilt, such as Manga Inker. Right, let's draw a quick sketch. So as I draw this curve, you can see there is slight wobble and jitter. So if I want a smoother line, I have to draw a bit faster. And I think this really affects accuracy, because if you want to create a detailed illustration, sometimes you have to draw a bit slower because you want to have that extra detail. You want to make sure the lines go where they want to go, but when you draw slower, the lines are affected by the wobble and jitter. So that obviously is going to affect your art. Okay, so this, I can see some wobble and jitter, so I have to undo. So if you have to undo that often, that is going to affect your workflow. Yeah, you can see here, it's not that smooth because I was drawing too slow. Yeah, I think this looks a bit better, but it's still not as good compared to, the performance is not as consistent compared to other tablets such as Samsung or the iPad. Okay, I need to reduce the brush size here. By the way, you can actually control how thick the lines are depending on which app you use, because some of the apps allow you to adjust the pressure curve. The tapered strokes actually look fine. By the way, you can see this is quite pixelated because, well, I'm zooming in really close. Anyway, the tapered strokes, they look good. Yeah, so the smooth surface also affects how accurately you can draw, because sometimes the pen tip will just glide away from where you want, unless you are someone with a very firm hand, firm grip. When the pen tip is very near the display, you can see the cursor. And when the pen tip is near the display, you will not be able to switch tools because palm rejection is activated. On the iPad, you can actually switch tools even when the pen tip is near or in contact with the glass surface, but for Android tablets, you don't get that feature. You can't do that. Drawing inorganic shapes or lines is easy with this pen, but if you have to draw straight lines, that is where you will see the diagonal line wobble. So if you draw, for example, backgrounds such as furniture, buildings, vehicles, geometric shapes, yeah, this is going to affect your drawing. Let's take a look at this sketch that I have drawn with concepts. Now this is, well, a building, a very old building, drawn from a reference photo that I found online. So as I zoom in and out, you can see that it's not that fluid. This is not a problem with the tablet, it's a problem with the app because it also performs like this on other tablets. So let me remove the colors and have a look at the line art. Okay, take a look here at this diagonal line. Let me try and duplicate this line for you. You can see that there is, I mean, it's not straight. It obviously is not that straight. So let me draw a parallel line here to see if I can make it straighter. Let me undo. Yeah, I can see some wobble and jitter. I mean, if you zoom out like this, it's maybe not obvious, but if you zoom in, notice that tilt that is randomly activated because I was holding the pen at 45 degrees. So with this app, I have to hold the pen more vertically so that tilt does not activate by mistake. Okay, so this, I would say, looks straight enough, but I can still see slight diagonal line wobble. Yeah, let me just add this here. Okay, this is straight enough. Okay, let's take a look at other lines here. This is, I would say, straight enough. Sometimes the extra wobble or jitter can give you that hand-drawn effect, but the thing is, sometimes you don't want that wavy line or the wobble. Sometimes you just want a perfectly straight line. Yeah, here you can see, not that straight. Let me just select this line, delete it, and redraw it to see if I can actually draw this straighter. Okay, now it's straighter, not too bad, not too bad. Palm rejection actually works fine. Okay, I just realized that I probably should have removed the background. Anyway, it's not that important. Let's have some plates here. The lines are quite straight. Okay, this is the maximum zoom. So I'm drawing a diagonal line now. And the lines are quite straight. So no problems here. But sometimes the line performance will also vary depending on the app you use. So this is the completed sketch. I think it looks alright. Let's remove the color. Yeah, the lines are definitely a bit looser compared to my other sketches because the matte glass is smoother. Let's create a very quick sketch of this vehicle with many diagonal lines. Let's zoom in here. This is actually quite straight. Let me draw a bit slower. This is actually alright to me. This is the completed sketch. So there are definitely some instances where the diagonal line wobble is noticeable. So yeah, the line wobble is definitely going to affect your work if you require that extra accuracy. For quick sketching, it's fine. It's just that if you need accuracy, then you have to worry about that line wobble. So this is my artist review of the Xiaomi Pad 7 Pro. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. And do subscribe to my YouTube channel if you have not, so that you can check out more artist reviews for tablets and pen displays.